Micah Parsons has reported to the Cowboys mandatory minicamp, and this is after he did not attend the optional OTAs, which is, it's fair that people have been pointing out that it is optional. But here's the thing, right? So, there's a lot of things that he said in his interview with the media. Some things along the lines of, well, Aaron Donald missed training camp and he ended up winning Defensive Player of the Year that year. Okay, I get it. Here's the reason why I've been so critical on Micah Parsons missing out on these OTAs. This year is different, okay? There is a real question of leadership within this locker room. The narrative is real. They're coming off an embarrassing playoff loss and coming off an offseason where he was talking about wanting to be more of a leader. You had to be present for those optional OTAs. It sends a different type of message, and I get it. I understand that they're going to have a lot of time to be around each other, and Micah Parsons is accurate when he says that. But it's the small things, it's the small, minute details that are the difference maker in championship teams. And here's my thing. If you don't want to be a leader, Micah Parsons, I'm completely fine with that. Nick Bosa is not a leader in San Francisco. He's the best player on that defense, though. He won Defensive Player of the Year before. There are plenty of examples of guys not being great leaders, but they're great players. It's not a requirement to be a great leader. And if Micah Parsons wants to be that, I thought it would be a really big statement to come into OTAs like Dak Prescott does, because Dak Prescott's the leader on the offense. They need a Dak Prescott on the defense. They do, and they don't have one over there. Like when you look at the offensive side of the ball, the roles are defined, right? Dak's the leader. You got CeeDee Lamb, who, he's not the leader, but he's a great player, and that's completely fine. Nobody has a problem with CeeDee Lamb's leadership, by the way. Nobody. Why? Because one, he doesn't talk about wanting to be a better leader. Two, you don't really hear from him. Three, it's more proof that you can be a great player and not be a great leader. Just go out there and perform. And that's what CeeDee Lamb does. Also, Jake Ferguson, he's a guy that could be looked at as a leader, but he's also a great player as well. Tyler Smith, great player. I don't know what type of leader he is because he's in the offensive line room and you don't really hear much from those guys. But, it is good to see Micah Parsons back with his team. He talked about Mike Zimmer as well. It was very interesting. And see, here's the thing, and I know people think that I'm like a hater of Micah Parsons. I don't hate Micah Parsons at all. I have his jersey. I think he's one of the most talented players that this league has ever seen, but I don't think he's reaching his potential. That's the only problem I have with Micah Parsons. And I don't like some of the things that he does off the field when it comes to, like, I already explained this before. He's not a bad guy whatsoever. When you talk about the off the field stuff, I'm not worried about this guy getting in trouble with the police or anything like that. Not at all. I don't worry about that at all. I don't like some of the things that he says. It could potentially rub people the wrong way. And it has. Like, there are reports within the Cowboys organization that there's some people within that organization that they're not really feeling Micah like that. It's a legit thing. It's not something that's made up, and there's reality to it. But, he was talking in his interview. He said that he said about 20 words to Mike Zimmer. Another part of the interview, he said, well, all the coaches say, hey, well, Zimmer likes it this way. And then Micah responds with, hey, I like it that way. And then he's talking about how this is going to be a compromising relationship, how there's going to be some things that he wants to do and there's going to be some things that Zimmer wants to do. Like, I'm not sure how smooth this relationship between Mike Zimmer and Micah Parsons is going to be. I'm not sure about that. You're going to see times where Micah Parsons and Mike Zimmer are getting into it on the sidelines, and that's completely fine. That's completely fine to me. There's nothing wrong with healthy adversity, right? I could probably find a better word for that, but it is what it is. You're going to see that on the sidelines. You're going to see the camera pan over and Micah Parsons is going to be giving it to Mike Zimmer, or you're going to see Mike Zimmer giving it to Micah Parsons. It's just such a drastic change in philosophy from the Dan Quinn regime to the Mike Zimmer regime. Mike Zimmer is more in your face. He is more disciplined. He is more old school, like Micah Parsons said. And we'll see how that goes over with Micah Parsons. We'll see how that goes over with the rest of this defense. but it's a kick in the behind that they need. But I don't love hearing from Micah Parsons, hey, there's going to be some things that we have to compromise on. And here's what I'll say. Micah Parsons is a great player. If you're going to take, that type of, I don't know if you'd call it criticism or input. Input's a better word. If you're going to have input from any player on this defense and say, hey, maybe I don't like this plan for me, it's going to be Micah Parsons because he's that damn good. He's the best player on your defense. But at the same time, I don't think it's going to be, from the standpoint that Micah Parsons had the type of freedom that he had under Dan Quinn. I don't think that's going to be the case at all. Mike Zimmer is going to expect certain things out of this guy. He's going to want him to play certain roles on this defense. And Micah Parsons might not like it. And I'm completely fine with that. I do not care. Okay? Maybe Micah Parsons isn't going to be put in the position to get as many sacks as he has the prior years. And I'm fine with that because Micah Parsons is more than just a really good pass rusher. He is. This guy can get you about 100 tackles a year. He can be effective against the run, regardless if you have a great one technique that's taking up blocks or anything along those lines. This guy can be a great player from that standpoint. So, it's going to be very interesting to see how this relationship plays out between Micah Parsons and Mike Zimmer. I'm very excited to see what Mike Zimmer has in store for him, and we'll have to see more come training camp and obviously the season.